back in the days of 3rd edition, there were two basic kinds of fighters. There was your melee fighters and your ranged fighters. Now, issues of whether or not a fighter should be equally good at both aside, the basic idea is that your melee fighter would get feats that improve their melee ability. They'll give them new special abilities, let them specialize in weapons, more damage, whatever. Ranged fighters would take feats to reduce or remove penalties. This was a thing for much of 3rd edition. Basically, anyone who wants to be making ranged attacks, which includes some casters, like warlocks in particular, they would take a lot of the same feats. You're basically gearing your character, taking abilities, mainly feats, to reduce or remove negatives until you are at baseline, or at a similar baseline to melee. And this design has sort of popped up in 5th edition again, though it's a little bit different, of course, because ranged attacks don't provoke opportunity attacks. But nevertheless, you have, what are the main drawbacks of ranged combat? Is if an enemy is too close, you have disadvantage. And if your target is too far away, you have disadvantage. Which, I mean, honestly, like, the fact that those are the same thing and they can't stack is a little bit irking. Because then if you have an enemy who is too close to you and you're shooting at a target far away, there's no penalty. There's no additional penalty for that. But I digress. You can take Crossbow Expert as a feat to remove the penalty for having an enemy next to you. And you can take Sharpshooter to remove the penalty for someone being too far away. Both of these feats come with additional benefits. So you're not just taking a feat to reduce these penalties. You would probably be taking these feats anyways. Maybe not Crossbow Expert. I think ignoring nearby enemies is probably the main draw of Crossbow Expert. But certainly for some builds, you would take it anyways. Sharpshooter has, like, the ignoring long range penalties is kind of a minor thing compared to what else you get in that feat. Ignoring cover and the power attack benefit. And so what you're left with is a ranged combatant who has no penalties for being ranged. There's no real difference between ranged combat and melee combat for this character, because they don't care if enemies are too close or too far away, which is kind of the only distinction. And it's interesting to me that they went back to that design, because I feel like it was universally hated in 3rd edition. My perception of the community at the time, which granted, like, the internet and the ability for communities to communicate, was very different then than it is now. But my perception was that people pretty much hated this. The fact that you would take all these penalties for doing ranged attacks baseline, and then you took feats just to remove the penalties. It doesn't feel good. It certainly doesn't feel as good as getting benefits, like starting from a baseline and going up. Which is not to say that, like, because describing it that way makes it sound like ranged combat is bad and you have to do character investment to bring it up to baseline. That's not true at all. In 5th edition anyways. In 3rd edition, it absolutely was true. Like, doing ranged combat without specializing in it is just bad. But in 5th edition, the penalties are relatively minor and mitigatable. Even without having to take character investment, feats, builds, whatever. Because you can just position yourself pretty well. And it's usually fairly easy to do that. These feats just make it so that you don't even have to worry about that at all. And it makes ranged those two feats together make ranged combat strictly superior to melee combat, because you get additional benefits from those as well. Like, so you're not just removing penalties. You are, getting your bonus action attack from Crossbow Expert. You're ignoring the loading property so that you can use a hand crossbow, get a whole extra attack on top of your normal set of attacks. And for Sharpshooter, you're ignoring cover. and getting your power attack feature, which is a significant source of damage. Not huge, it's not outrageous, but it's a significant source of damage. You definitely want it if you are specializing in range combat. And so what you're left with then is a sort of lack of flavor, because like if you think about the gameplay loop of a melee character, they now have all the restrictions, because a melee character can never take a feat that says you don't have to get within attack range of an enemy. You still always have to do that. And if the enemies are too far away, you're still always going to lose out on a turn by not being able to attack. So it's a big part of what makes ranged combat strictly superior to melee in 5th edition. And like I don't want this video to be just about the disparity between ranged and melee combat, because that's a whole involved thing. I just think it's an interesting design decision to have the, apply penalties by default and then fix those, as opposed to having everyone start at a baseline and then take feats to accentuate the strengths of that playstyle. It is no secret that the archery fighting style is the strongest fighting style in the game, which certainly contributes to the issue. But like, it would be interesting if there were more system level, that is like not character features, but there was more system level distinction between ranged attacks and melee attacks. In particular, I think melee attacks need more. I've in my own homebrew, I have taken steps to try to enhance and emphasize the potency of melee attacks. In particular, my fighter rework that I kind of have been dabbling with. It's not ready to publish yet. Don't get your hopes up. I had damage scaling as weapon dice. So like, instead of getting 2 attacks, you would get 2 weapon dice on a single attack, which means that your opportunity attacks are able to hit a lot harder. And so that's a thing that melee does that ranged can't ever do. But yeah, it is a really just boggling design decision. And the fact that people, that like the 5e community isn't upset about it. Like, no one seems to really be that cranky about having penalties and then investing in feats to get rid of it, probably because of that other stuff that's tacked on. Like, it doesn't feel like a wasted feat. So that, I mean, bravo to Wizards of the Coast for figuring out how to do the bad thing they did before, but in a way that people don't realize it's bad, or don't notice, or don't care as much. And if you can make the community not care, I mean, that's really all that matters. Anything to keep from designing well. Anyways, that's more or less all I had to talk about today. What's my opinion on it? It's bad design. It's like, it's not the most egregious design in 5th edition, honestly. Like, you can, and it's kind of a subtle thing too. Like, as I said, you might not even notice it if it's done in a particular way. I would prefer that because like ranged has like the natural advantage of being able to pick whatever target you want, as opposed to melee, your targets are more limited. So range should have additional drawbacks. And those drawbacks, I think, should not be avoidable. Like, you can avoid them with good positioning, maybe, and maybe teamwork too, but you shouldn't be able to just take a feature and say, I don't care about that drawback anymore. It's not a thing. That shouldn't happen. You should be taking feats that give you other benefits under certain circumstances. A great example that comes to mind is a couple of different classes in 4th edition, namely the Ranger and the Warlock. There may have been others. Had an ability called Prime Shot, where if none of your allies are closer to your target than you are, you get a +1 to hit. I think that's really cool, and that encourages, sort of like, dynamic movement, coordinating with your team. Like, don't get too close to this guy. Can you stand there instead? That kind of thing. I think that's really cool for ranged attackers, because that also encourages you not to stand like as absolutely far back as you possibly can. which can become pretty stagnant. If you're too far away, you kind of aren't interacting with the movement aspect of the game, which is kind of a major part of the game, or at least it should be, ostensibly is. That kind of thing is what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not saying, like, prime shot should be a thing. It could be. I'm not saying it should be, though. I'm saying, like, abilities that accentuate the play styles that are evocative of the fantasy being created. You know, whether it be the archer, the crossbow expert, or a blaster caster, you know, a warlock, or even like a sorcerer specking out into damage should have different kinds of mechanics than just I do melee attacks at 120 feet out. You know, because that's kind of lame, right? Anyways, that's my take.